Welcome everybody. This is AOD Institute of Education. This is session 2 of Assess and Promote Social, Emotional and Physical Wellbeing. If there was a wrong recording went out for last week's class, if you managed to get the wrong one, then you will get the correct one, which will be part 1 of this. And so this is session 2. There's another session 3 coming next week, and then we'll be talking about the assessments later. So I'll just start by acknowledgement of country. Sometimes it gets worse when I do my own slides, but when I don't, they just surprise me. In the spirit of reconciliation, the AOD Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. We pay our respect to all First Nation people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So just to start off tonight, we are going to go, as I said, over session 2 of CHCMHS011, and it's called Assess and Promote Social, Emotional and Physical Wellbeing. Holistic. So it's not just promoting. If you go to a gym, you might get promoted physical well-being. If you go into mental health care center or agency service, they're going to be promoting mental well-being. If you go into community centers, they're going to be promoting social area. But we're trying to promote social, emotional, physical well-being. Now, that's not all of who we are. So when we think of who we are in our whole health, in holistic, there's other areas of us. We might even say that not just emotional, but mental as well. So it's like different, make the distinction between social health, mental health, emotional health, and then physical health. And then even then, we could break that down a bit more, but we'll have a look at it later. And that's what we're looking at the course to do. I'll bring up the training gov page first. So this is when the government designed the course. They're saying, this is what we have to cover. This is what we have to study. Assess and promote social, emotional, and physical well-being for working in community. Make it a little bit bigger. This unit describes the skills and knowledge required to work collaboratively with individuals to assess, promote, and review all aspects of well-being. So even though it's titled physical, social, and emotional, we're looking at all aspects of well-being. So it's completely holistic area. This unit applies to work with people living with mental illness in a range of community services work contexts. So this is meant to be studied whether you're studying AOD, whether you're studying mental health, community services, youth, NDIS clients, aged care, anybody that's going to be potentially suffering mental illness, which is all of us, like everybody, then this is for working with those clients. I'll just shrink that down just in case I need it later. So the topics: overcoming barriers to change, motivation and interviewing, assisting the search for professional advice, isolation and the impacts on mental health, helping clients to understand their social networks, ways to engage with social well-being, progress in recovery-oriented practice, evaluating services, and legal and ethical considerations for well-being. Just a quick check: did you get a link for Rat Park last week? Just in case you've seen it or you haven't seen it, did Vicky or an email give you a link for Rat Park video?
Yep.
All right, that's fine. That was one. It
All right.
was it was meant to be linked with last week, but I hate anybody watching it without me. So good. All right. So sorry, we're not doing a warm-up activity. We talked a little bit, so I need to move on. Overcoming barriers to change. So we're going to identify barriers. Then we're looking at stages of change model, which we've looked at in other topics. If you've done other topics, we talk about it quite a lot because it's a motivation for change and avoiding discriminatory or judgmental attitudes. So just to start with motivational interviewing, we've got a video for this. I'm sure when that is. Be engaging. So just if we haven't mentioned this before, motivational interviewing, it's a way to talk to somebody um, when discussing change in somebody's life. And it could be for any AOD issue, it could be for any it could be used in life coaching when somebody's trying to figure out what kind of change somebody's wanting to make in their life, whether it's relationship change, career, education. If somebody is wanting to move on, motivational interviewing is going to be good. Um, and as we look at it, it's not right. Um, it's not a psychological gimmick to get people to do what they don't want to do. That's really, really important. Like when sometimes the psychological magicians, they'll try it, you'll see them on YouTube trying to get people to do something they have no intention of doing. And people are like, oh my gosh, wow, that's amazing. How did you get that person to do that? So it's not hypnotism, it's not psychological persuasion. It's a way to interview somebody and talk to somebody, helping them to do, supporting them to do something that they already want to do. And that's key to what it is. So that is done by being engaging with the person, focusing on progress to change, evoking the desire and motivation, and making a plan of action. When they're coming to us, when a client's coming to us, they're coming to us as an expert, but we're not an expert in their life, so we're not going to tell them what changes they need to make. They're coming to us as an expert that knows a bit about how people move on um, through recovery, how people move on through trauma, how people move on in different areas of life. And they're coming to us for a strategy. We are the strategists. If I'm not a natural strategist, but or a logistical genius, but working in the industry, we have to figure out how to make that part of our skill to be a strategist, like a military general, strategic thinking. And when people are putting roadblocks up about, no, I'm not going to be able to do that, then trying to figure out a way to support them so that they can do it if that's what they want to do. Um, so plans of action, something that is amazing with motivational interviewing is evoking the desire and motivation to do something that they already think, yes, I would like to do that. But if that's where it stays for the next 30 years and they never actually do it, then people quite often can look back and regret the things that they didn't do in life rather than things that they did do. Um, so, yeah, I'll get the link up for the video and I'll put the link in the chat, which is a lot easier to do. So it's motivational interviewing. That's the link there. Um, copy that. I think it's a 5 minute video. They usually are 6.5. So I'll put the link in the chat. Just click on it, mute your mic, and come back in 6 minutes. So in New South Wales, that's like nearly 6:25. And we can watch this.
Ryan, you're just muted, man.
Yep. All right. I asked if there was any comments on the video, but you didn't hear, so I was muted. Good, bad, any confusing or Ian did put his thumb up. I don't know whether he knew exactly what I was saying, or he's telepathic, or he's in the next room, or something like that. I don't know. Uh, um, so with this being, I am sharing that, yes, I am. With this being the format for MI, motivational interviewing, obviously there's got to be the client staff relationship has got to be great. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's going to, if it's not a good relationship, like a good therapeutic relationship, it's going to turn into on the video, as it was called, the paternalistic. So if it's not already a good rapport, then it's going to end up with the staff member, the counsellor, the caseworker just trying to force his opinions because they're not listening, and there's a bit of a rift there, and he's trying to get over the rift, and it's not working. So the relationship's got to be great to start with. There's loads of motivational interviewing recordings on YouTube. You'll get to see heaps of them in different other modules, but it's important in this one to look at the theory behind it, because you can copy loads and loads of them and do it like they do it. But if you don't know why we're doing that, as he said, it's going to turn into some magic trick, that psychological magic trick. So there is also a method as well. So it's really simple, simply broken down into the counselor caseworker starts with a question. It's an open-ended question, and the client will answer it, and then the counsellor or caseworker will discuss it openly with them, and then the caseworker will set some tiny targets which end in, like, is that something that you think you'd be able to do? And it sounds too methodological if I'm trying to break it down like that, but that's basically what it is. And when people are really good at it, it just flows. And then it starts into another question and discussion about it, and it gradually just flows into a massive conversation. And if you watch some videos on YouTube, you see a good psychologist doing it, that people agree to do what they wanted to do, and they find a plan to do things, which they didn't have before, which is really, really good. So, come on, move on. So, assisting the search for professional advice. When we're talking about professional advice, it's literally coming from us. It might be any of the referrals that we might want to suggest to them. It could be a rehab, it could be GP, it could be psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, caseworker, and they might have already been to them before, but it's amazing how many people don't have a good relationship, even with their own GP. And they might comment that, yeah, I don't really get on with my GP. He doesn't really understand me. That's like one of the most fundamental things that um, if you haven't got a good relationship with your GP, that's almost the foundation of work moving on from there. And when when a standard thing, going to a GP, if you've got flu or you've got a broken ankle or something, you go to a doctor, he gives you a recommendation, he'll say, take these pills, or there's some antibiotics and some painkillers. You got them for a week, and then these for a month, and then come back and see me in a month, and we'll figure out the next step, this health treatment plan. So I'll go for the month, then it'll get reassessed, and then something might change or it'll carry on. And then we come and see after another month, and then maybe everything's complete. It's exactly the same with community services. We've potentially got a starting point, and somebody comes along, gets some activities, some focus to do something, maybe some homework, maybe to go and do something in the community or get a referral to somewhere else. And then, okay, that sounds great. So we'll do that and then come back in a couple of weeks or in a month. And it's amazing the amount of people that will say, oh, yeah, I went to a psychiatrist or I went to a psychologist, but I didn't really get on with them, so I never went back. It's like, it's going to see somebody once is it's like going to the doctor for that first appointment, and then it's just ended. There's no help there. So Medicare mental health plan from GP, booking appointments and booking specific sessions or booked groups of appointments, and providing information on local community specialists, wellbeing programs, etc. And obviously, everything I've said, that's not to say that all medical and health professionals are awesome and you just got to stick with it. What I'm saying is, if you don't get on with that person, find the one that you do. If your GP is not clicking with you, then get a good one. If the psychiatrist is not understanding you, or a psychologist isn't, or counselor, find a one that does. Um, Going back to the motivational interview, and the connection will not be there if we don't have the good connection. So with the clients that we're working with, it's an encouragement that when they say, oh, yeah, I didn't really like my GP. All right, let's find you another one. Where do you live? Let's get you a good one. Definitely. Because it's all going to end very, very quickly otherwise. Um, Yes, it does, Marty. It takes time to develop therapeutic relationships. Any relationship takes time. If it's a therapeutic one, then it can be more intensified if you're seeing somebody once a week or every few days. Um, but if it's once a month with a psych, it's going to take ages. And usually they're quite good at trying to navigate that. So isolation. Ah, why do we isolate? Isolation is one of the 4 to 6 appointments. Yeah. An episode of treatment that the government expects us to do with clients. They'd be looking at once a week, once a fortnight for about 3 months. So that's like 12 maybe in total. Um, But then obviously if it's once a month because everybody's busy, then you're literally getting 3 people or 3 appointments in that episode of treatment that the government expects massive change in that time. So it's gonna be different for everybody. Yeah, definitely, Marty. So isolation. Why do we isolate? How to prevent isolation and better mental health. Isolation feels normal, feels like the best thing to do when threatened or feeling a bit vulnerable. Yet, isolation is one of the best punishments that schools, governments, justice, armies, military, CIA. It's the best torture, one of the best torture methods that's been used for thousands of years to isolate somebody from from their community, so that you can try and get some control over them. So if it's one of the best torture devices that's been used for thousands and thousands of years, when we start to do it to ourselves because it feels a bit better to be isolated and vulnerable, we're moving ourselves into the place that we're torturing ourselves. Or even with a client, if they are pulling away because they're feeling ashamed, um, they might have had a slip up, had a relapse. They feel like you're wasting your time now because they don't want to come in because they've made this massive mistake, and it might not have been a massive mistake, but now they feel like they're wasting the times of the services and the staff. So I'm just going to pull away and I'm isolated. It's not worth it. It's While it's normal, it's not healthy. Um, to be locked in our own head is scary. Um, and I quick tangent. I watched a movie for the first time last weekend called Papillon, um, about a French guy at the beginning of the last century. If you're older than me, you've probably seen it because it was massive in 1973, apparently, at the movies. This great movie, thanks, Maddie. Um, he was he was a political activist, I think, and he was a bit of a gangster. So they locked him up in France for no, not in France, in French Guiana in South America, and it showed he was in isolation for years. Each time he was punished, he escaped, and then they dragged him back and then put him in. Right, you've got another 2 years in isolation. It's like, man, this is crazy. Um, but to avoid somebody going just down the wrong path in the head in isolation. It's about building the social well-being. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, so you have to see Papillion. I had it earmarked for months and thought, yeah, I'll watch it. It was amazing. Uh, Moving on from what I've just been saying, if you can vaguely remember what it was like in COVID, not the best, not the good times, but the normal bog standard day-to-day mundaneness of COVID. I'll just give you the video. Yeah, it's not about Moonpig, um, but that's the link. The screenshot was on the slide, so I'll put this in the chat. Well, the amount of different videos you've got for different classes and things, if you want to get through them really, really quickly, you can change the speed. And I can't play any now, but I can show you how to do it. So you click on the little settings wheel and you bring up playback speed, and you can slow things down. If somebody's talking really, really fast and you can't keep up with what they're saying, you might slow it down from normal to tiny bit less, just so that you can take notes if somebody's like a quick thinker and talker. On the other hand, if you're trying to get through a list of videos really, really quickly, you might speed them up to, I generally always speed them up to 1.25. If I've got loads to do, I'll speed it up to 1.5. 2, you can't understand what anybody's saying. 1.75, 1.5 means you can barely understand it. But when you've got stacks, like heaps and heaps of stuff to do, doing it here, obviously you're nearly cutting quarter of the time off a video. So if you're expected to watch a 10-minute video, speeding it up to 1.5 means it's not going to be 10 minutes anymore. It's going to be like a minute, 7 minutes, sorry, 7.5 minutes. So it works. Just try it. But I won't do it in class anymore because it's irritating. I think let's go for break. 10-minute break. All right. The video we just watched, it was the mental and mental and emotional consequences of the COVID pandemic. While the there was massive physical health problems with catching COVID. The prevention of COVID came with it with massive social and mental and emotional problems for a lot of people. Um, that's just, I guess, that's what's happened. We can't change that now. Uh, and we're still feeling the after effects of that. People are still struggling with certain things because of the when it was the severe pandemic, uh, the after effects physically, mentally, emotionally, they're all still with us, and people are still struggling through it. The mental and emotional problems came because of the isolation, the segregation from communities, and being cut off from the important networks that we've got. And like I said, when we do that, or when friends, family, clients do that, we have to figure out some way to support them so that they can turn that round and hopefully start to rebuild networks rather than start to pull them down because they want to feel um, protected and safe because they're isolated. They're going to feel protected and safe then, but we have to help them turn it around and see the value in the connections. Yeah, Tamara.
Just a comment. I worked with a lady today who was in Victoria, so in Melbourne for the pandemic, and they were really isolated. And she had her first baby during that time, and it was a baby that she had tried years and years to, like, it was an IVF baby. And so the lasting consequences for her is that she experienced postnatal depression during that time. And her coping strategy now is that she can't stay home with her child. So she is always looking for something to do. So that child, whether it's going and playing in the escalators but yeah, she just feels like she can't stay home because she was forced to stay home during that period. So, and I think it's also really hard for people who didn't experience that isolation, that forced isolation, to understand. Because I'm actually somebody who didn't. Like, we were in a really fortunate position here in Coffs Harbour area. So yes, there were times we couldn't go out, but we live on a really beautiful part of the country. And so we were still allowed to go to the beach. We were still allowed to go to the rivers. And then when I think about this woman that I met today, she was just not that fortunate, and the lasting consequences will be impact it is having on her baby.
Yeah, no, it's true. And similar, we had my local area to run and ride a bike in. It was huge, and I didn't really feel isolated. And even then, we could meet up with people and walk or run or ride with people that, as long as we were socially distanced. So didn't really feel the effect. My daughter couldn't go and see her friends who lived outside the area, and it drove her mad. My son, teenage son, was happy because he could still go on the Xbox, talk to all of his mates, and he had to stay in the house and just play on the Xbox all the time. He loved it. And it's bearing in mind that some people, yeah, they're gonna go through they're gonna go through what other people see as trauma, and it's not gonna phase them at all. Yeah, Justin.
I found this a really interesting time because I was in nothing I'm proud of. I was in prison during COVID, and it actually gave like the outside, like we used to laugh at the word lockdown. You know what I mean? Like they use that term very loosely, and like lockdown is because I don't know if people know now in Australian jails, you're only actually allowed out of your cell for about 2 hours a day. So that's most of the time you're locked down. That's the rules now. They have certain time periods where you're only allowed into the unit. And it was a really interesting concept because when we got out, like I really realized how much like people, it's changed a lot more empathy for that sort of situation. Do you know what I mean? And you know, a lot of people now see that it's like a really inhumane thing to do. You know what I mean? Not that it's
Yeah,
going to change any time in jails, but it was really interesting how I didn't realize how, like, I didn't see because getting out and how affected everyone was in general public, and it's just like, well, there's thousands of people a day that are only allowed out 2 hours a day, like, and hopefully like it changed society a little bit at looking at like isolating people and then the trauma that it causes.
Definitely. So obviously that's going to lead on to if we had months that when, like I said, I wasn't affected that badly, but we had months at a time where it was lockdown number one or lockdown number two. If somebody's been to jail, then that's going to impose a certain isolation, potentially just because they've been to jail for the shortest amount of time, means that they're probably going to be going through some issues just because of the time they've been there. No matter what they did, no matter how long they were in for, even just a short time, there will be repercussions of that. And they're going to need to work through it.
And just quickly, just I don't know, it just made me think of it. So because it's an institution, and institutions are a little bit more susceptible to like viruses and stuff like that. So for the 14, everybody had to do 14 days locked in their cell for the COVID period. So there was 14
Wow.
days where we were put in a single cell, and you just had to sit there for 14 days. So it was, and yeah, it was difficult. It was really difficult. No phone calls, no nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So perfect time to queue up some more videos. These are impromptu ones. So first of all, I can remember talking to Tamara about this ages ago. The looking at social connections and AOD. We've got a guy coming to Australia soon called Gabor Mate. He's the boss on a lot of stuff that we talk about. How childhood trauma leads to addiction. Is addiction a choice? Like, if you Google this, you could go down and watch any of them and see how it links to a lot of the most addiction modules that we're looking at, most of the AOD stuff, but especially this one with social connection. And because there's so many with this, you do your own research for that. But what I wanted to queue up now, it is another video and it is quite long. Put it on normal speed because it's amazing. It's Rat Park on YouTube. I'll give you the link. I think it's that one. Yes, it is. It's only 5 minutes. That was 10 minutes. So that's good. I didn't get a ticket tomorrow. I couldn't get a Sydney one. Pretty disappointed. Okay. What do you reckon to that?
Yeah, I've just finished watching Chasing the Screen by Johann Hari. Very good.
Wow.
And I've read
Yeah.
Mate as well, but Johann Hari is a bit easier to read
To talk about their brand new film.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Great. And just in case anybody missed it, the way professors, psychiatrists, psychologists are talking about addiction now in the 21st century is based on this type of rat experiment. And whether that's good or bad, whether it's proved or not, this is the way we're thinking, and this is the way we're moving forward. And it's influenced Gabriel Mate. It's influenced anybody that's studying trauma, like psychiatrists, psychologists studying trauma, Bessel, van der Kolk, other massive psychiatrists. It's because of this. And it's obviously fundamental for our study as well. Anything else? Anybody else comments on it? was it silly or Marty? Yeah.
Yeah, I found that really interesting because I've got there are still doctors, GPs who have the belief that if somebody's on pain medication, and regardless if they genuinely need it to manage a pain situation, there's still doctors out there, and especially in my local area, who will take people off high dose pain medication despite the fact that they still need it, and put them onto low dose medication, and consequently it makes the person's mental health anguish deteriorate even further. Because from my studies and what I learned about pain medication, if you genuinely need it, there's a very, very, very low likelihood of addiction developing. The only time that they really have to be careful about it is once the painful stimuli, what's causing the pain, has been removed, and then consequently, then you need to manage the medication appropriately then. But while the painful stimulation or pain causing event is still in place, there's very little likelihood of that medication becoming addictive. That's just my understanding of how pain and medication works together. I mean, there's probably other people in the group that might have a different point of view or different. Yeah, but that's from a medical perspective. That's the way I understand pain works.
Cheers, Marty. Tamara, you were first. What would you?
I think I've sort of said it in the chat, but Johann Hari's book, Chasing the Scream, has a whole chapter devoted to Rat Park. It is a fantastic book. It talks about the war on drugs. I know in that video it mentioned like the 100-year war on drugs. So it really starts there with Harry Anslinger and how they tried to criminalize all of that behavior. But what I found really interesting about that book is the discrimination that people of color have experienced for so very long. So Harry Anslinger's team, if a white woman like Judy Garland or Julie Garland, was she a known heroin addict? So people
Was she? Right.
Yeah, you have to listen to the book. But so people from affluent white backgrounds were supported by Harry Anslinger and his team for recovery, but they really made it tough for people of color who were also in that situation. So Billie Holiday features really heavily in the book. So she's a very famous heroin addict, and it was just awful how she was treated in the end. And yeah, look, I would really encourage you guys to have a listen or a read if that's your thing.
Cheers, Tamara. Justin I reckon he's going to say something that I'm going to say. Go on, Justin.
Oh, there is also a TED talk with that Johann Hari, if you don't want to read, because I'm not a good reader. But I found the more interesting stuff around Gabor Mate and Hari, like in Portugal and other places where they had like a mad heroin epidemics of like 50% of the country was addicted to heroin, and they didn't just delegalize it. They changed like the social system. So they paid businesses to like hire people that were still using and like basically force them back in the community. And now it's back down to like 1 or 2% of the country. So they basically wiped out an epidemic by this whole idea of Rat Park, That's like the next step of decriminalization, you know what I mean? Because like you've got America at the moment, you've got like or I think it's Canada or wherever it is in Toronto and places where they've decriminalized it, but they haven't fixed any of the social sides of it, and it's turned into an apocalypse. So I think like the whole idea and theory behind this is actually more focused on the community and how we treat addiction and addicts as a whole society, just not just like not letting them go to jail, like it's a really interesting concept that we look at it so backwards, or have been for so long.
Yeah, definitely. Two things on all of that as well. What I thought Justin was going to say is working in a rehab, Marty is, I'm not quite sure. Working in a rehab, Marty's experience is completely the opposite to what our rehab did, or what rehabs that I know of. And that was, it might be because they were being too careful because we're responsible for all of the clients. And the thing that they did, whether it's psychiatrist or GP, if they needed ADHD meds as one side, then they wouldn't get amphetamine-based ones because they're going to be, they might get addicted to them. Oh no! So they got them on lower dose and long-lasting ones rather than amphetamine spiking. Painkilling medication, endone was never prescribed by the GP to them. Even when they're playing footy at the rehab and they fall over and break their ankle, they weren't allowed to have endone. So they were, if they needed any severe pain medication, actually they weren't even allowed codeine. Yet, no codeine, no endone, no like opiate-based medication. So if something was severely wrong with them, they would have to go home to convalesce, I think is the right word, and then come back when they don't need any of the medication. Okay, you do need the medication. Yeah, we realize that, but you can't take it here, so we're going to have to let you go and then bring you back in 6 weeks, 2 months. And any kind of medication that was mentioned to be potentially addictive, the GP wouldn't prescribe it and the psychiatrist wouldn't prescribe it because it was, and it might not have been about the client. It might have been more about us as a rehab that we don't want anybody to get addicted because of that. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, it's a little bubble cut off from the outside world.
Yeah, it's a complex situation, isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, looking at Gable Marte, looking at Rat Park, is it doesn't take long before people start to think the next step is saying that addiction is just a society problem. It's got nothing to do with trauma. It's got nothing to do with how addictive a substance is. It's got nothing to do with certain socioeconomic factors. It's got nothing to do with mental health. It's just about the environment and society. And people jump on that bandwagon and say that no, it's got nothing to do with society. It's not society's problem that we've got a drug and crime epidemic. So obviously that's one of the methodologies of where where addictions come from and how we treat it. And we'll look at that in other modules of whether it's a medical model, whether it's a criminal model, is it a scientific or a sociological model that we're tackling? And sometimes it's one and not the other. So, yeah. So helping clients to understand their networks. I'll get back to the slides. Protective factor or social well-being. Excuse me. When our social well-being, as whether it's social health, social well-being, when that area of our health is focused on, then we can prioritize it and we can lift our level of health. The informal circles of support are circles of relationships. Most people that get addicted say that they've got addicted because of somebody else, and it's very easy for some people to slip into isolation because family or friends have got me into this situation. But part of the recovery is trying to help somebody build a foundation of thinking, okay, people have helped get you here. It was their fault. Oh, yeah. But it's going to be people that help you get out, whether it's a rehab, whether it's an AA group, an NA group. a smart recovery group, a sponsor, a mentor, and a recovered alcoholic or a current alcoholic that is still in recovery for the rest of their life, whatever the way they form it, it's going to be people that also get them out of it. And that's the only methodology we work with, that we have to let people in to help them. So the circles of support is key, trying to help people build a close circle of accountability and trust. And when people have been through trauma, first of all, there's no trust there anyway. So it's trying to help people build trust is one of the first things of working with people in addiction, trying to help them build trust in people. So just to begin the process is just relationship. It's not necessarily psychiatry. It's not necessarily counseling. It's just helping them build trust in somebody. So ways to engage with social well-being. So our or their social well-being, learning, focus, not just focus for your brain, but it's focusing for your emotions, for your whole mind holistically. Employment. A lot of sociologists have said that employment, having a job, is one of the most meaningful things that you can do, even if it's a horrible job. Not having any job is worse than having the worst job. And psychologists and sociologists will tell us that in many, many books, which means that volunteering is the next step, finding something that you can put yourself into. And that could be a community of all of these. One of the in role plays, there's a conversation that is expected from you when you're doing role plays, that if somebody has a spiritual family, whether it's like spiritual, religious, whatever the religion is of their family, their parents or the grandparents, trying to reconnect with that, whatever it is going to help them go through grief, go through any trauma, help them with dealing with addiction. And at first, when people first read it, they feel like, I can't encourage them to go to church. I don't even believe in going to church. Or I can't encourage this guy to go to a mosque. I don't even believe what they believe in. But it's about getting the client to do this. Get back to the community that was supporting them. So it's with their family. And especially with like supporting somebody that Gran's just died, and what are you going to say to them? And then, oh, Gran used to go to church. So have you thought about going to church to try and make some connection with Gran? I don't like church. Would never go there. But it's not about the church. It's about the community and the connecting with somebody that they are close to or were close to. Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, I've got 2 points. First of all, with regards to get people reconnecting with their spirituality or religious side of whatever they believe, it's not about what we believe. It's about them reconnecting with what's important with their values and what lines up. And in doing that, it's about making sure that we're doing what's best for the client, not what we think's best.
Yeah.
So that taps into what we've already learned in some of our other units, I think. The second thing that you talked about was volunteering. It's really interesting. The Australian government and state governments are struggling and have identified that the rates of volunteering is decreasing markedly, and that they're trying to figure out ways that we can get volunteers to re-engage with organisations because some of the stuff that's going on is starting to suffer because of lack of volunteers. And I know of situations up here where organisations and community groups are looking to have to close because they don't have enough volunteers to support their work.
It's crazy. It really is.
It's really sad. It's, and but anyway, that's the state of the play.
It is. Yeah. I'll just jump back into the slides. I've probably lost a lot of time tonight. I do want to get onto the assessments though. So progress and recovery oriented practice. Evaluating services. Obviously, the best service is the best service for somebody is the service that they will engage with the best. So we can refer them to 2 or 3 different ones, but if one's closer or one, they like the look of the poster, or one, the person on the phone is engaging, that's the one that they're going to go to. Having said that, if they're going to struggle to get across town to get to all of the appointments, maybe get them one that's a short walk from where they are, or one that's only a short bus trip, because whatever they engage with, that is going to be really supportive for them. And it might not be the best one, it's just one that they can engage with. So when we're working in the legal and ethical area, obviously we've got to look at all of this. Codes of practice and policies, we've got to look at work role boundaries, our scope of practice, that unless we're working in AOD and something else, if it's about severe mental health issues, or it's about housing, or it's about finances, then it's going to be out of our sphere, out of our scope of practice. So we've got to be careful. Their rights and responsibilities, our rights and responsibilities, and the things that we're expected to do and the things that they've got to do. And obviously, work health and safety. We're looking at duty of care and dignity of risk in that, and looking at it, it's based on human rights. We'll go over a lot of this in other topics, obviously. Just talking to Vicky the other day with role plays, whenever somebody mentions something about role plays, I always try and pass it on. Even if the role play is not about the informed consent or confidentiality there, we have to make reference to it. So if it's not, if the role play is already massive and you don't have any time to look at the form and talk about privacy and confidentiality and an informed consent, we have to bring it in and just mention it to them and say, look, remember earlier when we talked about privacy, confidentiality? I know that means that everything's going to be just between us, but because I think you might be a serious risk, or because there might be a child at risk, then I'm going to have to pass that on. So we've got to bring this in whenever we can. If there's any need for mandatory reporting, whether in real life we might not pass it on or report because we're going to speak to our supervisor first, it's best to, in a role play or a case study or anything like that, it's best to say that we're just going to report it. So the social networks that we're looking at, education, employment, community, volunteering, hobbies, personal interests. This is just trying to get some focus for somebody that, okay, that feeling disengaged because of life, feeling disengaged, where can they get a hook into? Sorry, I was going to say, where can I get a hook into them? But it's the other way around. Where can they get a hook into one of these? Is there something here that they could really think, yeah, I could really see myself doing that, even though I'm feeling quite lonely? This one, looking at areas of well-being. We talked about this a lot in rehabs. So if we, let me annotate it. If we looking at the different areas of our health, and somebody's wanting to track something. This is like it's a bit like it's not really an assessment tool, it's more of a screening tool. Yeah, a homemade one. So today I'm feeling all right. I had a bit of a sniffly nose when I woke up this morning. So out of 10, I'm going to give myself a 5 physically. Mental health, somebody passed away recently, so I'm not feeling great. I'm generally trying to struggle on, so maybe I'll give myself a 4 out of 10 for that. Socially, I'm trying to stay physically healthy, but I don't really want to speak to people because I'm not really there. So I'm actually going to give myself a 3 for that. Spiritually, nothing really. Financial is a possibility. We could say emotionally instead of financially. We could say emotionally as well as mentally because there is a differentiation there. If somebody was coming to see you and they did that kind of thing on Monday morning, they might do it again the week after. It's good to track with medication as well. If somebody's starting medication or they're coming off medication or any major life incident. So what is it? It's January now. We'll say the next one we'll do in February. It won't be next week. It'll be in 4 weeks' time. We're going to do this again. And then they've said, actually, I've straight away, I've been to a counsellor. I'm feeling a lot better now. So I am feeling really, really good. I started going back to the soccer club that I used to go to. So, that's helping me a bit. And because of that, it's had a knock on. I can run around to the shops without like wheezing anymore. It's really good. Actually, when I was speaking to the counsellor, they mentioned about um, my grand being in church, and so I've been to church a couple of times, and they're nice people. They're not as bad as I thought they were. And then the next month in March, haven't been doing great. My had a bit of a flu. Had to go and see the psychiatrist now, get some new medication, sort of dipped down. And as you can see, that's going to go along. But in 3 months' time, when they feel like they've dipped, they can say, actually, I might be a 6 here, I might be a 7 here, or a 6 here, but I have actually progressed. Looking at how I was then back in January, I must have been in pretty much a big state actually. Looking at what that's saying, and then also they're all connected. So because one is feeling low, the others won't ever get very high. I can only be as mentally or emotionally well as I am socially well. I can only be as physically well as I am like emotionally well. I'll never get to 10 in one without bringing the others up, which means if I focus on one of these, just focus to get it a little bit better every time, the others are going to come up as well. And then financial as well. And financial is linked to all of these. Financial can bring us up or down. So it's just a bit of a tool to track and see how people are doing. And it's something that we can do as well. It's linked with journaling. If somebody's journaling, they could put this in at the beginning of the day. They could track it every day for a week. They could track it every week for a few weeks. So can be helpful. Come on then. So exploring social connections, we've got employment, education, and volunteering. There's trying to help people hook into these, trying to explore possibilities, being the strategist and saying, okay, what is it that you enjoy? Can we get something that you enjoy connected to one of these? If employment is out of the question, then what about education and volunteering? There must be something. What is it that you enjoy that you can get connected with one of these? And that's community hobbies and interests. With these, we can almost put this into a plan and say, okay, this is you. Let's list the other people in your life and how connected you are to them. Are there people that are directly connected to you? Or are they people that are like beyond connections of connections? And how to build your connections? Is it friends or is it family? How do we build these connections and make them stronger? So just with somebody coming in and saying that they are feeling disjointed, the empowerment will be empathy. If we're talking empathically with somebody, it's going to be empowering to them, to support them. Interpersonal skills and the building the rapport, building the relationship with them, even role play. You'll be sick to death of role play by the time you finish the course, but it's amazing how important working with somebody and role playing their next chat with their partner about difficult relationship, or their next chat with their mate who keeps buying them alcohol and they're wanting to put a stop to it. Trying to build their confidence by role playing the conversation is going to help. So with emotional well-being, we've got to look at self-care, we've got to look at relationships and support systems. And just to play devil's advocate or teach you how to suck eggs or something, we're not going to be able to pass this advice on. We're not going to be able to teach anybody how to do this if we don't do it ourselves. If we don't know ourselves well enough, then we're not going to be able to help somebody discover who they are. It's amazing the amount of people who do understand who they are because they've been working with a psychologist or a counselor or a psychiatrist for years, and they then go into mental health work because of what they've found themselves and think, like, now I know myself, now I understand myself. Far out, people should understand themselves because they're lacking until they do. We'll forget that one. So the cognitive, when we're saying cognitive aspects, it's the brain work, the things that are built up in our brain, our coping strategies, like Tamara said, coping strategies when in a difficult situation. The young girl who became a mother in COVID, now in a difficult situation, the coping strategy is already there, and it's going to take. It's not something that we can do with a client, help them get new coping strategies. It's when somebody's had the same coping strategy for 40 years, whether it's to run and hide from a problem or they've had to drink for 20 years, that's not a coping strategy is not something we can help them get out of quickly in a 3-month episode of treatment. We are there to help them establish connections that are going to last longer than seeing us. Maybe a psychologist that they're going to be seeing, because we've referred them to them, they're going to be seeing them for a few years, or they're going to be volunteering in a group for many years because we've managed to help them find something and we put an inspiration into them. It's things like that. Mindfulness as well, whether it's meditating or mindfulness or breath work, it's all going to help. Often we've got to identify activities for them. What activities are going to work what activities are going to work with them or not work with them. Asking them, can we give this a try? Can we try this? Are you going to be willing to, can you commit to this for a few days, even if it's just to at a volunteering spot or going to a psychiatrist or putting a plan into place? That's part of the end of the motivational interviewing. That can I get a commitment from you to do it for maybe 3 days this week and see if it helps? So cultural and spiritual well-being in the client. I think we're going to have to break here. That's probably the easiest. Yeah, because I need to look at the assessment afterwards. All right, let's have 10 minutes. I need some water. Okay, I just want to finish the slides off. There's not many left. I probably panicked too much. And then get onto the assessments. Which are there. There we go. So typically when we're talking with Indigenous clients or Indigenous communities, their cultural, spiritual well-being, it can be potentially so easy to rebuild that kind of connection, so that getting somebody engaged with their strong culture, their strong spirituality it could be revolutionary. A lot of time, the guys that go into rehab that have strong spiritual, cultural families, and to list them, whether it's Indigenous, Muslim, Christian, Orthodox, like Coptic, Egyptian Christian, Catholic, like Lebanese style, when any of their young people or younger people go through rehab with substance issues, whether it was the first thing that they lost or whether it happened in the middle because of the drug issues, they lost connection with that major, massive community, potentially with parts of the family, potentially with all their family. And when we start to help them re-engage with their stronger community, their big community, like I said, with any of them, it really builds them up. It gives them strength. And it's good to see. It's really, really helpful to see. So whether we're talking about education, communication, we're trying to build connections with them. And it's surprising how many elders in any of them communities, whether it's Indigenous or Muslim or like Coptic, Christian, Catholic, it's amazing how many of their community leaders will come in and mentor like a young client or a younger client, whether they're 20s, 30s, 40s, just trying to build the connections. They're not necessarily seen as a negative person because of the mistakes that they might have made. So it's really, really good for that. So to review everything, to review their recovery process, recognize the progress, which is partly, you can't recognize progress unless you're documenting it. You're documenting the change, which is part of the table that I was looking at, which is part of the regular assessment tools that we're expected to use. The government says, do one of these every month and upload the data to the National Drug Alliance website so that we know exactly who's getting tracked and who's getting help and how it's helping everybody. We've got to give new directions and strategies. And when I say that they're coming to us for a strategy, they're coming to us for a specialist about being a logistician. It doesn't mean that we have to know everything, because we could easily refer them to a smart recovery meeting. Or we could refer them back to their community, or we could refer them to an AA meeting where new directions and strategies are going to get taught there and they're going to get supported there. Because in the end, they're only with us for a certain amount of time, so we have to help them build the life out after that. Contingency plans, so relapse prevention plan, what happens if all goes wrong, and what am I going to do if this is not the way it's meant to work out, trying to find them specialist expertise and helping them get an evaluation. And for us, we've got to reflect on that as well. They'll be expected to review everything. They'll be given a questionnaire, whether that's a Survey Monkey thing or a piece of paper thing, to fill out and comment on how well the service has or hasn't helped them. That's important, and that's another thing that is expected to be done. We've got to reflect on that as well. We've got to reflect on the practice that we've done. How did we do it well? That's the most important thing to ask. How did we do it well? So we're not going to pick fault with it. We have to reflect on how we did it well to start with, and then look at, okay, how could I have done it better? Is there somewhere that I could have done it better? Looking at strategies for ourselves about how to improve it with the next kind of person that's in this category, and then make a plan for improvement, like ourselves. The reflective cycle. So we describe what's happened, what feelings go along with it, how did it make us feel, evaluate the description and the feelings, analyze how we can change it, make a conclusion, and then put an action in. It's very close to the stages of change, if you look at it. Some psychologist has brought these up and is doing really well because people are using them everywhere. This reflection cycle, I'm just going to give you, it's a short video, so it's worth watching. Okay, that's the link. I'll put the link in the chat. It's 2 minutes long. We'll just watch this quickly and then we've got the assessments to look at.
Gibbs reflective cycle is a model that you can use to organize
Okay, I sped that one up, so I'll skip on through. Well, if you're still finishing it, that's all right. It's great for research and study as well, and to look at the way you're not just working with one client, maybe, but with the way a meeting has gone, a department meeting or um, a collaborative meeting. Putting that sort of tool together will help, and will help. If everybody's doing the same, will help everybody to get an understanding of how they can move forward after the meeting. So it does work to do something like that. And finally, this is what we've done this session. So social well-being, social networks, emotional well-being, cognitive aspect affecting well-being, cultural and spiritual well-being, reviewing and reflecting the client, helping them review, helping them reflect on the way it's gone, and then our reflecting as well on the way we put the tools into practice. And then obviously approaches to practice, and then we didn't actually look at this, did we? How to examine your own bias. We didn't really cover that. We do that in plenty of other modules. So I'll bring the assessments up. I'm guessing that Vicky last week did the role play.
No,
Is that, what did you say, Madison?
no, she didn't.
Oh, right, okay. Did she look at any assessments?
No.
Oh,
No,
right, okay.
she just said that we were going to get emailed a video of your recording or something to do with the
Yeah.
first.
That got messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll do this a lot slower because we've got a few weeks. Well, we've got last week, this week, and next week. So I'll zoom this in a bit. If you haven't seen these before, this is the questionnaires. The questionnaires aren't easy, but they're easy to they're straightforward. They're not easy, they're straightforward. So oh, that's part of the role play, sorry. So explain how evidence-based practice can be used when supporting a person. Everything is going to be in this learner guide. I had a quick look earlier on, and it looked like a few people were right in that they couldn't access a lot of this yet. I'm not sure why, because we're 2 weeks in. I can't do anything.
Yeah, Dwayne, I've got the learner guide and the resources and everything like that, but the assessments haven't been uploaded onto the assessments part of the site. So
I'm the same, Marty. I had to contact LSO, I think 2 days ago in preparation of this class and just ask them to release all my content to me because nothing had been released yet. So I haven't looked at any of this. I know
yeah,
the guys on the learning material section, but yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I can't do anything. I can send them an email and say no. I'll say that. Hold on, record this bit. So when the portal is opened, for everybody, there's going to be a list of questions. That was I've closed it now. That was the right learner guide. So if you can get the learner guide and you read through the learner guide, you will get the answers to the questionnaire, the quiz at the beginning, because the quiz is the first assessment. Then there's going to be a role play that we'll look at over next week. And then I think there might be a case or a project, sorry. So if you can look through the learner guide, that's going to help heaps. Then we'll do the role play next week. I'll study it anyway, not necessarily put it into practice. And that is it